Good afternoon and welcome to Who's Right. I'm Sandra McFadden and today our guest is Judge Allen. Hello, Judge Allen.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
We're happy to have you here. We know that you are currently the judge for Dane County and you were appointed to that position. Is that correct?
Right, I was appointed to fill a vacancy on Branch 11 of the Dane County Circuit Courts.
And how long have you filled that position?
I took office in early January, so it's been about 3 months now, almost 4.
Well, that's very strange. 3 months and you're running for re-election. Why is that?
That's because the state statute that determines when a judge has to run for office when filling a vacancy looks at the time when the original judge resigned their seat or retired. And because Judge Mosier retired in June or July, I kind of lost track, that meant that the judge that was appointed to fill his vacancy would have to run in the next spring election. And I was not appointed to the bench until December 14th, had to close down my practice with the city attorney's office in Madison, and so was only able to take the bench in early January.
I see. So Judge Mosier was the judge that was in your place, and he appointed you.
No, the governor appointed me.
Oh, the governor
Right.
appointed you. I see. The governor appointed you, and now you have to go 4 months out and get reelected,
That's correct.
even though you were never elected in the first place.
That's right. This will be my first time to be elected by the people.
This is very confusing, very interesting. Okay, well, this is a challenge because are you up against another judge that has already been in office or no?
No, I'm actually
Not-
my opponent is a state public defender. She's been with that office for, I believe, 28 or 29 years. And she practices almost exclusively criminal law.
Right, and that is Ellen Burrs, is it?
That's correct.
Yes, and we have invited her onto the show, so we will be seeing whether she'll come on or not. But can you tell us what your job basically is as judge of Dane County? What is it that you
Well, I understand we
have
only
to
have
do?
half an hour for the show, so I'll be brief and to the point.
Okay.
The vast majority of what I handle right now involves criminal court. This branch is on what we call a criminal rotation. Each of the branches rotate through different areas of the law every 2 years. So right now about 80%, maybe as low some weeks as 70% of what I do is criminal work, which means everything from plea hearings, sentencing hearings, suppression hearings, motion hearings, and trials. We just did a trial last night. In fact, I was, I started my day at 7 and we finished at 10:30. So, and that's not an atypical day. Beyond that, though, I also do a fair amount of civil, such as foreclosure, family, such as divorces. I've even had a probate case come through the branch recently. So there's a wide variety of what a court does. Even when it's on a rotation, it will get matters from other areas of the law, which is why a judge needs a very broad base in legal practice.
Right, and have you had that kind of a base?
Oh, yes, I have. I started out when I graduated from law school. First of all, I went to law school here at University of Wisconsin. I did it on the 2-year plan. Most attorneys take 3 years to complete law school. I graduated with honors, and I went to work for a small firm here in Madison. And if you know anything about the legal market in Madison, small firms don't survive unless every person in that firm is pulling their weight, and I pulled my own weight. I practiced mainly criminal defense work, personal injury representation, and general civil litigation. I then went to work for the city attorney's office in Madison, and there you start out as a prosecutor. And as a prosecutor, I did many trials of ordinance violations, everything from fire and building code violations to health code violations to, at the most serious, maybe drunk driving cases. And many of those drunk driving cases were then appealed to the circuit courts where I did jury trials. This is Unfortunately, my opponent has taken sort of the low road in this campaign recently and trying to tell people I've only had one jury trial. That's simply not true. But as I progressed in the city attorney's office, I moved into other areas of law, such as public records, open meetings, public integrity work. I've done some of the more serious and sensitive investigations in the city, to include the investigation into the Overture Center when we had those issues of sexual harassment there. I also did the recent investigation into an alderperson that was accused of sexual assault. I've also rewritten the city's public records ordinance. It was formerly modeled on the state statute. It really was just an adoption word for word of the state statute. But the state statute speaks of the hot technology of the time being microfiche. Well, we're well beyond that. So I brought it into the digital era, and that ordinance is now used as a model for municipalities across the state. I've done contract work, federal contract compliance. I've done equal opportunities law. I was the advisor to the Madison Equal Opportunities Commission for approximately 12 years in the Department of Civil Rights. I've done personnel law, human relations law, you name it, I've done it in the city attorney's office. So.
Well, that's very interesting. Where do you stand on the sexual assault laws? Because I don't know if Wisconsin is one of the states that honors the laws where you can arrest young people when they assault a child or not. What are those laws called? There's state laws. They're named
sexual predator laws?
Yeah, they're named after a little girl. Do you know the ones I'm talking about?
The Casey law?
No.
There are several laws that are named after young
ones I was thinking of. But anyway, where do you stand on sexual predator law?
Well, a judge and any person running for that office is prohibited under the Judicial Code of Ethics from commenting on how they might rule in any particular case. I believe it's important that judges don't inject their personal viewpoints or their personal biases and prejudices or their own thoughts of what maybe the law should be for what the law is. One thing I also believe judges need to do is make sure that the rights of the victim and the rights of the accused are balanced and respected.
So, would you consider yourself to be an activist judge, or would you say that you're more of a constitutionalist judge?
I would say that those type of titles they're almost like saying liberal and conservative.
Yes, they are.
It's very, very hard to find anyone with a cohesive philosophy across their life.
Right.
But also, if you look at the circuit courts, they're more of a yeoman's court. They're not a law-developing court. That occurs at the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court.
Well, still, if a law comes before you and you're ruling on it, would you rule straight down the strict ruling, or would you consider yourself to be one that takes into consideration superficial things that happen and, you know, sidebar kind of things that would make you rule differently than maybe another judge would, that would be more strict?
I think the best way to answer that question is to tell you that I believe exactly what I said earlier. Judges can't substitute their personal vision of what the law should be or ought to be for what the law really is. And going into the courtroom, I knew that the best judges that I've ever seen are the ones who listen to both parties and challenge both parties and are fair and just looking for the truth and the correct legal answer. They may not like the answer that they come to, but if that is where the law leads them, so be it. We need to remember that when I walk into my courtroom, I walk down a long hallway with a bank of windows, and through each of those windows, I have a view of the Capitol. I think the architect who designed that building was brilliant and must have been a legal scholar themselves. Because what that reminds me is when I see the Capitol, that's where the law is developed. That's where the law is made. And what they do up there is distinctly different than what I do on the bench.
Okay. What about the Constitution? Do you see it as a fluid or a legal document, or a definitive document?
Well, that's an issue that legal scholars can spend days debating.
Yes.
And have spent volumes of paper and books writing about. There's a little truth to both. But the Constitution is meant to bend, but it has only so far before you break it. One of the reasons I served in the military was because I honestly believe that this is one of the greatest countries in the world. It's a beacon of freedom to the rest of the world. My son, Wade, has traveled overseas. He was lucky enough to get a scholarship during his junior and senior years in high school to study in Egypt and in Morocco. And now he has friends and extended family members who have fought and in some cases been injured, and he knows of people who have died fighting for the right to vote, fighting for democracy. What we have here is very important, and judges need to stay within the confines of their role in this government so that they maintain the respect and impartiality and the public credibility that makes this government work.
But what do you think about today? Where are we today when it comes to our Constitution?
I think we're in very good shape, really. I know some people are concerned, but what I look at right now are a vigorous and healthy debate about what the Constitution means. That means the very bedrock of the Constitution is alive and healthy, the right to petition your government, the right to express your opinion. And as long as we allow people that freedom and the opportunity to vote, we'll have a strong and healthy democracy. Now, of course, today is the day that the Supreme Court is having the hearings on the health care law. I find that debate very fascinating because at its heart, there are constitutional issues.
Right. That was one of my questions, is about the health care law and how you feel about Obamacare and the way it is being handled in the courts right now.
Well, again, my personal feelings about any legislation are irrelevant. I check them at the courthouse door and leave them there. I will also say that I'm not in a branch that would probably ever hear that issue. That's going to be resolved in the federal courts.
Right. But as a citizen, what is your opinion of the way they are taking that through the courts, as the individual mandate, and how does it seem to be part of the Commerce Clause? Does it fit in or does it not? That's more of what I'm asking.
I understand your frustration that I am somewhat ducking your question.
Yes.
Ducking your question because I think it's important that when people come into the courtroom, they see a judge and they have the respect and the knowledge that this judge does not prejudge the case before them. And therefore, in each of my careers, be it an Army officer, a police officer, a federal agent, an assistant city attorney, I have made it clear that I check my personal feelings at the door and I do the job that I'm assigned to the best of my abilities. Have I always agreed with the positions my clients wanted me to take? No. But that's not my job, that's not my role as an attorney, nor is it my role as a judge to impose my will or my decision of what the law should be for what the legislature has validly determined the law to be. Now, if they outstep the bounds of their authority, that's what the judicial branch is there for. That's one of the checks and balances in our government.
I think I'm just asking for an opinion, not for you to make a judgment, but just your opinion on the individual mandate and, you know, the way that it fits into our Commerce Clause.
Right, and I think it would be inappropriate for me to answer that question.
You do?
Yes. I'd love to, but I
But you're
respectfully
not going
decline.
to tell us.
No, no.
All right. Well, then we'll just move right on here. This is very interesting. It strikes me that it's very difficult to be a judge because you're limited in what you can say, ever.
You are, but there's a purpose for that, and the purpose for that is that judges have a defined role in our government. And if judges, for instance, let me back up and say, there's been a lot of flack about whether judges should have signed the recall petition. My opponent did. I know one of the judges I served with did. As an individual decision, though, I decided I would not sign it because I didn't want anybody coming into the courtroom saying, aha, that's the judge that signed the recall petition, I'll never get a fair hearing from them. Mm-hmm. I want people to walk out of the courtroom saying, whether they like the decision, the outcome or not, that it was a fair decision based upon the law. That's how I go home with a clean conscience every night.
So when they say the Honorable Judge Roger Allen, they get the Honorable Judge Roger Allen.
I strive for that every day. It's a very humbling and, as you said, honorable duty to serve the public in this manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you have a lot on your plate, and I hope that you get the opportunity to serve us again in the future.
Thank you.
And I feel that you're a very good man, and good in spirit and good in heart and in mind, and we're very lucky to have you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Judge Allen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us. We hope you get to watch this and give us your comments, and come back and see us again next time. Good evening.